Hi there, this is Elise Bennin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. It's still very early in 2025, but there's more uncertainty now in the world and in the economy than I've ever seen in my 36 years in business. And so it was against this backdrop that Jonathan Cleveland of Cleveland Design, he's a good friend, a longtime client. He's also the author of Designing for the Greater Good, the best of cause marketing and nonprofit design. Jonathan joined me and one of my small coaching groups recently to share, among many other things, the key to his success over the years, as many years as me, in fact. He shared also why he has no interest in retainer clients and how he's preparing for the possibility that many nonprofit clients will have their funding slashed. So listen and learn.
Thanks for having me. I'm Jonathan Cleveland, principal at Cleveland Design. All of your stories are very familiar. I've been in business almost 35 years. The last time I actually worked for anybody was 36 years ago. So I've been there with the freelancing around the clock and not knowing what to do and how to start building a business. But we'll probably get back to that at some other point. So basically at this point, there's 5 of us on our team. At one point, it was a little bit larger with 9 people, but now we're a very good size. And my employees have been with me 28 years, 26 years, 20 years, and 14 years. So it's a very solid team because we've been together so long. And, one thing, just talking about the kind of work that we do, we've got a very good corporate mix. We're more of I like to say we're more of a niche for a small team that goes in with global corporations. And we've always pitched ourselves as part of their team. So we're not looked at as, say, like an outside agency. We seem to get on there. We've kept our clients, like my employees, like Fidelity Investments. We've been with them 30 years, continuing, with at least 1, if not 10 projects a month with them. Thomson Reuters is the client that we've been with for 15 years. Carrier, Sensitech is going on 20 years. So, that's the relationships that we've built with these clients. So they look at us as more of an internal resource partner as opposed to answering RFPs all the time, trying to get some work. In that, we also do a lot of nonprofit work. And it's interesting that I think a majority of you, work in the nonprofit arena or academic arena. Through Elise, I'm the co-author of, she made the connections of Designing for the Greater Good, which was a book from HarperCollins about 12 years ago now, I think. And it was the best of nonprofit marketing design globally. And then we've continued. We still are very sought after in the Boston area, which is where I'm based, for doing work with larger nonprofits. And most of that comes down to really when they're looking at rebranding and those kind of initiatives. With our client base now, I'd probably say it's 50-50, and that changes depending on the year. Unfortunately for some of you, I think it's going to change a lot because of the political environment. I've already seen it with our own work. And then with some of the leaders that I work with are completely stressed out and, and nonprofit leaders, I should say. And so, that's where I think you need to start to pivot. And we're actually, looking to pivot somewhat because I think we're going to need to cover that work that has been put on hold already. So, that's kind of my story. I think, there's tons more to the story, but I think maybe that'll come out when you ask questions. So,
sure. Yeah.
And Elise, I met you speaking at How in Las Vegas. What year was that?
I have
We
no
were
idea.
children.
We were
It was a
children.
long time ago.
Indeed.
I think it was like what, 20 years
95?
ago?
I don't know.
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. So
Anyway,
I do want to hear about the pivot. Actually, I think that would be very interesting. And maybe you can couch it in the evolution of your business model because you didn't start with, you know, 5 people
no.
or 9 people, right? How did that evolve?
And it will evolve with me, and I think you've probably all been there. This is like not a news story. I mean, I was freelancing like crazy. But I mean, freelancing usually in-house places. And then starting to get a few tiny jobs through friends or referrals or stuff. And then basically was freelancing during the day and starting my own business, working at from 5 to midnight. And I did that for a good couple years until I felt I could finally just stop doing the freelancing at places. Another interesting thing, because some of you, I was freelancing. Most of my work was doing textbooks with Little Brown and Houghton Mifflin. So I was in that whole college textbook academic world, which is nothing that I really wanted to do. It was just that I was making decent money, and they liked me. So,
But let me
but
ask you then, Jonathan. You said you felt like you could let go of the freelancing. What was
yeah.
that feeling based on?
Really the feeling was based on I felt like I had enough work, certainly not enough work to make a decent income, but at some point you have to make the jump. And I felt like I just have to do this because I couldn't sustain the schedule I was doing. And like I say, I had no interest in pasting up because this is before computers. Just so you know. So I'm that old. I had no interest pasting up college textbooks for the rest of my life. And I had worked in a really great design agency. So this is kind of my quick story of, people always say, oh, you had an overnight accessor, you're so lucky. Well, I don't think anybody's lucky. I think most people work their ass off and then it turns into something. I hate it when people say, ooh, you're so lucky. I'm like, not really. I've worked really hard to get here. So what had happened was I was doing some, there again, the age thing. I mean, maybe some of you remember, but there was no computers, and then Apple came out and the Macintosh came out. At one point, because that was such a revolutionary thing, there was these huge global trade shows called Macworld, based off the same name as the magazine. And a kind of a friend, associate, worked in the marketing to run those global events. And so he started using me to do these really crappy postcards. And I kept saying, I would really love to show your team my portfolio. He's like, no, we know you did good work. I'm like, but they hadn't seen my work. And, there was no website, and hardly anybody had websites or computers at this point. And there again, it's just like you have to kind of stand up for yourself. He asked me to do one, and I said, I'm not doing it unless you let me come to the office and do a presentation to your entire team. He's like, okay. So I go to the office, I show my portfolio, and there was a piece in there that everybody was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we've been talking about for the exhibitor campaign. Because part of, if you're running a huge global trade shows is getting the exhibitors, and pay for it. So they hired me based off that piece, based off my stubbornness to say, I'm not doing your work unless you see my work. Based off that piece, they hired me to do all of the marketing for the exhibitor campaign for Macworld. And this is me working out of a one-bedroom apartment. And these were huge global events with hundreds of thousands of people in charge of mailing lists and everything. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But, I scrambled and I did it. And it was very successful. And so the next year, they hired myself. And then at that point, I brought in a partner who I'd worked with at an agency before. And then we got the whole attendee campaign. So our big start was really, we were doing Macworld and San Francisco, Boston, Tokyo, Mexico City, humongous campaigns. And part of this was managing their mailing lists, managing thousands and thousands of printings and mailings, going out to the Midwest where they have the huge web presses where you can, you print the magazines in the mail houses. So basically, we just kind of dove into this with huge, just a very huge account. From there, because of that, and because they were doing stuff at the Macworld in Boston at the World Trade Center, which was owned by Fidelity Investments, then I made connections with the event people at Fidelity Investments. Our name got around through them. And because of that, then we got out of the event thing because the name got passed around.
So those relationships, were they retainer arrangements or were they just project to project? Like,
I've never done retainer.
No? How come?
I did it once. I shouldn't say never. Because here's my deal. That we did it once, and then we had done it at an agency that I had worked at for a few years. And there's always this, I think because the way the business is, it's like, okay, say you've got a $10,000 a month retainer, which is a lot. So there's an expectation of the clients not getting their $10,000 worth. And then there's an expectation then the other month where the designer's like, oh my God, I'm working for $5 an hour now. So I found the whole balance and expectations in the relationship to constantly be either stressing me out or they were stressed out. And I never felt it just, balanced out evenly. So I just started doing it per project. So all of our clients. So like I say, we've almost always done, we did that retainer for like 3-4 months and I quit it. It just didn't work with what we were trying to do with these people. So I've never done them after that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It also sounds like, relationships are everything when it comes to your business.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to talk about like that balance of getting the work and getting the work done as you're cultivating those relationships.
The thing is when you've got really strong relationships, it's extremely easy to get the work. You don't have to get the work. They come to you. They look at you as a someone, trust. And especially now, I mean, this is a while back, but I mean, now I think trust is a huge deal in relationships. And, I think that sort of concept has eroded some in the past 10 years. But I think, gaining trust as a true partner. And, part of it too is, and I've said this to my employees when they start, I said, make your client your best friend.
How does that manifest?
How does that manifest? I think it manifests by taking an interest in them as a person. Because I find, and I think probably you've all been there where you felt like, oh my God, this client's so out of control or, is not happy about something. And 9 times out of 10, it's really, don't shoot the messenger. The client's usually out of control or stressed out because they're getting some sort of awful pressures from higher up or outside sources. Of course, we've had a few jerk clients over the years, but not a lot. And so I really think building the relationships is not only producing great work and working with them on a even level basis, partner basis, but I don't know, maybe it sounds cliche, but I've been invited to weddings. We have to do dinners out. I've gone on a vacation with a client. And it's because if you're working a lot with a client, it's one of those things where you're kind of talking to them more than you're talking to your regular friends that you want to go out with. You know what I mean? I mean, I find it very hard to schedule time to see friends like every 6 months that I want to see. Yet I'm talking to these people like maybe 3-4 times a day or a week or something. So I think I just think it's a good business practice to build a relationship. And part of it, when a client I've had for about 8 years at a very large corporation in Boston, and now she like texts me photos of her kids' Halloween costumes. But I asked, I'd asked during a meeting, like, so what's up for the kids for Halloween? Mm-hmm.
So you're good at
she couldn't wait to text me the photos of her kids for Halloween. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's for everybody, but I try to tell my staff to do it. But basically, I just, I've always told people that, make the relationship. So
Go to the pivot that you're talking about to replace the nonprofit work.
Well, the pivot, what we're doing now, and just so you kind of know, no matter how far you are in your career and stuff, it's just, you constantly have to, I think, reevaluate and redo stuff. So right now we're doing an entirely new pitch deck of our capabilities deck that we're going to be sending out to various places. And we're doing an overall generic one of just as a company. And then we're doing one that is specific only for nonprofits, because we find, and then one that's also more for the tech financial industry, tech, finance, and legal, which we do a lot of that work. And then that's one is more academic / with, some nonprofit work into that. And part of that is just the experience of doing presentations or doing RFPs and seeing people's eyes glaze over. Especially with nonprofits, they really get itchy if they see too much corporate work. They get very defensive. But we're not a corporation. We're not a corporate, Sometimes it's a hard sell to say, but the branding really is all the same. But anyway, so we're pivoting to do a different push because we've been doing a lot in the nonprofit sector. So we're basically trying to identify different markets that right now we feel like the whole nonprofit sector is, they're so nervous. And basically, it's financial of
financial?
much we love to work with nonprofits, but
what do you mean it's financial?
It's financial for us. You need to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As much as we all want to work for nonprofits, and it sounds like people do, at the end of the day, we're all doing this to make money. You got to be realistic about that. You can't be, so thinking like, oh, I really want to do this because I feel like it's more redeeming and it's helping people. It is, but it's also redeeming to have some cash in the bank. So after you work all damn day. So, it's just kind of a little message there of looking for organizations that are able to pay better.
I want to spend a little bit of time before we open it up to their questions on finding good people, managing people, delegating. I know that some of you feel like it's quicker if I do it myself, or the design is me. And so people expect the quality I would do. Just talk a little bit about that first.
Well, I think that's that first sentence is so true. I've been in so many situations where I've had hired freelancers and I was like, oh my God, I could have done this in 2 hours. And now I'm going to pull my hair out. That just happens. I think finding good people, it's hard to reflect back in a sense because the people have been with me so long, but I felt like it's the talent and the personality of being part of the team, the personality. It's almost easier to point out the people that I had to get rid of. And that was really, and in all honesty, well, one of them, in the years that I've had to get rid of like 4 people in 35 years. Well, actually 3. One of them had quit, but then wanted to come back, but that was just a whole messy deal. But like one, in instance, we thought this young woman was great. Very young, very fresh out of only had one job, had some decent work, but we thought, it should be a good part team. And then within days after she started, it was just, she was very odd. She pretended to be sick all the time. So after 2 weeks, all the other employees were like, get this woman out of here. And it was really just like a team thing. It wasn't a talent thing. And we just said, it's not going to work. And then another one that I had to get rid of was this lovely young woman who we figured out after probably 2 weeks completely had lied and not showing a portfolio that was her work. She didn't know how to do anything. So I had to get rid of her. But then the people, the positive thing is the people that I've hired, I felt like, had decent work, but were had such a great personality that I felt was part of the team that it's almost like, I think judging, how do I put it? I think judging people's work, and maybe this is younger, is very tough to really judge it because a lot of them have not had the opportunity to do good work. Does that make sense? Like we do good work and we have big clients and they might come in and apply for a job and their work is like, well, good, but they've only had worked on some really small clients where there was an opportunity to really show creative stuff. And so I think part of that is not being judgmental so much on the status of their work and seeing how they're going to be as part of the team. With that said, if somebody comes in and their work is just really, really subpar, I mean, that's just like, yeah, forget it. I mean, you don't even talk to them. But, and like I say, it's usually, it's been with a younger, someone younger, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a secret. I think when it comes to freelancers, we've never had a whole lot of success. And in all honesty, we don't use a lot of freelancers. We do almost everything in-house. We currently, though, needed to do a video that was out of our scope of our skills. And we'd been using a video company in Boston that was ungodly expensive. And we knew that the client for this project couldn't afford it, yet they kind of wanted something of that par. So I ended up going on Upwork. I know. So I go on first I went on Fiverr because then I'm thinking, like, I got to find something. So I get this guy in Hungary who totally ghosted me when I thought he was supposed to be working on the project. So that was really bullshit and I was really screwed. So I go on Upwork and I end up hiring this guy from Ethiopia who is the smartest, best video person I've ever worked with in my entire life. So if anybody is looking for a fabulously talented video animator, everything, I've got the guy. So, I think it's just identifying talent, but it's also really identifying personality.
Right.
That's what I found overall.
Yeah. I, of course, agree with Jonathan that it's all about the relationships and about being flexible. I also love his chutzpah. That is the attitude that works. You do have to be pushy sometimes, even if it feels awkward. In fact, I can show you how to push without being pushy. So if you want my help finding actual clients, real clients, good clients using AI, check out my new one-on-one AI client finding coaching calls, or you can just sign up for my quick tips at marketing-mentor.com. Once you're on the site, you'll find lots more resources, including my simplest marketing plan and program. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.